obviously there's lots of barriers and
Yeah.
obstacles to some kids. Yeah.
Okay, I just wondered. So
Yeah.
makes it easier to sort if nothing else, but it would be nice to have,
Yeah.
I just want to be sure kids that need it and, are aware to be able to apply, I guess is what I'm concerned about. So,
Right. Definitely.
okay. Thank you, Lori, for your work and your effort.
Sure.
Do I see Liza Johnson down there and a picture? Hey, kid.
You need to move over.
Liza said
I
she didn't
figured
want to
it
show
out.
herself, and I said, you show yourself and be proud. She's doing great, and we're delighted to have you. Any other announcements for the good of the order?
Just a reminder to mute yourself unless you're talking. There's a chat feature that you guys can use if you need to send messages while we're doing things in the background, and all that good Zoom etiquette stuff.
Okay. Sean, why don't you proceed with Happy Bucks, and we'll ask everybody to be, if you want to say something, raise your hand like we did last week. If not, that's fine. I want to be sure we give our guests plenty of time, and I'd really like to turn it over to them about 12:25. So we can do Happy Bucks in 15 minutes and hear from anybody that wants to say something. Please keep it fairly brief, and we'll move along.
Yeah, definitely. I'm hearing a little bit of an echo for some reason, so I'm going to do this as best as I can. I saw that Debbie requested to unmute during Happy Bucks, and that's fine with me if you're trying to say something. But if you're typing or doing something in the background or got a TV on, maybe just remain muted. That way it doesn't overpower everybody else.
It just feels kind of weird when you say something for Happy Bucks and there's no response from anyone at all. It's kind of like,
Yeah, I hear you. Debbie, since you're already unmuted, do you have anything you want to say about Happy Bucks?
Well, my Happy Bucks are basically follow up from last week's announcement. And some of you might have seen this on Facebook. We got a nice order from Miller's Produce, which has been in the Mukilteo area for 18 years. So our selection of our oils and vinegars are there. That and their Carlton Farms location, plus a special order from Provisions Restaurant down in Queen Anne, has me meeting payroll this month. So I'm very, very thankful for that. So
totally.
And I had the benefit last week of having an already pre-scheduled appointment with my therapist. So thank you for mental health. I feel in a much better place this week.
Good to hear.
Totally. Let's see here. Who else wants to go next? How about Jerry Bush? Let me unmute you, Jerry. See if I can get, there you go.
Got it. All right. Thanks, Sean. Yeah, I'm actually sitting here kind of giddy. So, and Deb mentioned she had the governor on the background. So we've been with our construction association groups, we've been working with the governor and the construction roundtable to try to devise a way to get people back to work in construction. It's been, maddening at times, some, kind of serious debates, emotional. I mean, you're talking about people's lives, right? And safety. And the governor announced today that construction is reopening, which is absolutely fantastic for us. I still feel awful for other business. Somebody used the word survivor's guilt last week. I think it was Debbie. I do have a little bit of that, but I have to say I'm really happy that we're going to be able to put some people back to work and get the industry going again.
Good news, Jerry. Is that all construction, or is he phasing it in?
It's all construction, but it's, obviously there's some very strict guidelines, some safety guidelines, and it's the way they approach it, rather than going project by project, they're going task by task. So if there are tasks on a construction site that aren't able to be done, appropriappropriately while following the safety program, then they just don't get done. So it's not going to be a wide open, free for all. And we of course didn't expect that, but it's a lot better than the last announcement, which was, keep it shut down until further notice. So good stuff.
Yeah, good news.
Hey, Paul Coley, I see you're on the call. Can you hear us?
Yep, I can.
How you doing, buddy?
I don't know. Yeah, can you see me?
No, we can't, but we can hear you, and we love you, and we want to know how you're doing.
Oh, we're doing fine. Yeah, we're doing good. It's been a rough few weeks. Linda's had issues with her family, so that's been bad. But other than that, we're doing good.
Good. Well, I'm sorry to hear about Linda's family, but good to hear about you, man.
Yeah, thanks.
Any other happy bucks out there?
Keep it moving.
Not everyone all at once. How about Rachel?
Oh, hold on. Oh, there we go. Okay. Hey, Sean tried to cut me off. That was very rude. So yeah, I just wanted to put in a plug about Housing Hope. We're moving our big annual fundraiser, Stone Soup, to a virtual event. And so it's actually gonna be really, really awesome. I'm hoping that we can get a lot of people attending, and it's kind of like a combination of a telethon, and then also you can give any time. So we have a special website set up for that where you can go to Housing Hope's webpage and like give to Stone Soup right now, and then you never have to attend anything else ever again. Or you can attend an event like this and see cool videos and stories and everything. And so the information for that is on Facebook and our website. And I would love to, we always have a really good Rotary representation there, and we always have a couple tables. And so it'd be really great to have everybody just come check it out. So I'll put in some extra happy bucks for my plug. Thank you.
That's cool, Rachel. I can see Sheila's wheels already spinning on that one.
All right, who do we got next here? Anyone?
I'll say
Carl, what's
something.
going on?
Oops, next time.
Go ahead, Gary.
I was going to say one of the places I wanted to put a plug in for one of the new businesses in Mukilteo. Maybe some of you have been there, the Cabernet and IPA, a small little restaurant, wine tasting place. And it's Beth and Sean. They used to have the Mukilteo Lodge, opened it up just in time for this mess and whatnot. And we've been going down and buying a couple weeks worth of wine every few days from them. And they have really good prices and really good wine. You should give them a try. Poor Beth is in there all by herself from 1 p.m. on, selling wine at good prices if you want to go in and enjoy some of her wine. Nice people.
Gary, let me review. You're buying a couple weeks of wine every few days?
Oh, did that slip out? I might have slipped that.
I was thinking the same thing.
Hey, Gary, where is it at?
It's in the old Tin Fish. It's right next to the parking lot of Arnie's. It's in a little place. It's right on the Speedway, and it doesn't say, they can't afford a sign yet, but there's a kind of a whiteboard that says Cabernet and IPA, and it's really nice inside. Really nice place.
Yeah, it's great. I've been there several times and it's really good.
Yeah, the prices are good. They have a neat way of selling wine. When it was open, you could buy the wine, pick a wine, and they cork it at your table for no extra charge, or you get 30% off to take it home of the price. And so I bought a bottle of the Quilceda Creek, and it was only $60 by the time I got the discounts, which is a good price on Quilceda Creek wine.
Sounds like you just had some.
Yeah, but might need
I think
some.
I'll be going there next.
Trouble with Q words for some reason.
That's probably why Paul isn't showing his face. He's been down there getting a couple weeks every few days too.
Got out of the tub.
Okay, anybody else? Come on, somebody's got to have stuff going.
Don't get Paul
This
that
is Bill
time.
Lewis. Can you put me on?
Hey,
You're on.
Bill, you're on.
Okay, I have a happy dollar. I mean, things are going really well here for me. My tenants are still paying me, which is great. And just happy things are going good.
Good, Bill. Glad to hear it.
Maybe we could turn that happy dollar into happy dollars then.
Oh, I got
there
a
you
check
go.
in the other week. It hasn't been cashed yet. You guys go into the mailbox?
I guess not. We'll have to go check on that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Dave Miles should have happy bucks. Birthday
Dave
bucks.
should.
Dave yep.
Oh, let me unmute him.
Because-
Let's see here.
Unmute.
Okay.
Am I unmuted now?
I
We
think you're
normally
unmuted,
keep
buddy.
you muted the whole meeting, David.
No, yeah, I do owe happy bucks for my birthday, and thanks for all the comments. Debbie and I have been doing well. We've been staying marooned in the house mostly. You know, I feel like Osama bin Laden, because he was locked into his house with 5 wives. So I understand he called the SEAL team and told him his exact location. That was a joke. That was a joke.
Not sure where to go with that one.
I apologize for that. I thought it was pretty funny. But no, everybody's good here.
Good, David. Good to hear. Chuck, what's up?
Yeah, I'm glad to be healthy, sitting out here on my deck. I can actually change it to sunset. Hold on a second.
You can control time.
Yeah,
How do you do that?
Okay. Well, my big announcement is I have another great granddaughter, so she's healthy.
Nice.
Hey, good.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
I forget how many I have. That's the only problem.
And you can't remember their names, right?
Forget birthdays. Forget. No.
That's great. Anybody else out there? Every time Sheila pops up, the Tiger King freaks me out.
I figured out how to do it. To put it back up.
I have something.
Hey, Ellen, nice to see you.
Hi. Hey, I just want to say it's so cool to see you guys and have some giggles. So those are my happy bucks right now.
Good.
There's Paul.
Great to have you too. Hey, Polly. Darren, you got anything going?
Uh-oh.
Is
Not sure who that is.
Hey, whoever that is owes happy bucks.
Yes.
I'll turn
Hey,
mine
this
off.
This is Carl. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know if I shared, but my sister-in-law came down with the virus here about 6 weeks ago. We're Todd's wife. And so in that household, maybe a little perspective and a little happy buck at the same time is that, they got the diabetic and they got Todd in the wheelchair and so forth, a little bit more susceptible, but Tammy's on her way through it and doing great. And her doctor said that, you probably all had it at one way, shape or form. There's really no way around it because the wife of who owns the house, she brought it in. Tammy got it from her, and they all probably had it because my nephews kind of were sick at some point. And the point there is that, everyone gets it, I think, in a different manner. But you look at that and say there's 7 people in the household, 1 got tested, 1 recovered. And you look at that and say, gosh, theoretically, really 7 had it, 7 have recovered. So it improves the numbers that the media is not reporting that we don't always see, I guess. So that's another positive, that there's more people probably recovering than what is known. And that's a good thing, even though you consider that, we've lost people too, and that's not great. So
well, they have like 3 or 4 states that did testing for that and found that.
Yeah.
That's same thing.
A lot more.
So we're happy that Tammy's on the mend.
That's good, Carl.
Good news. Great news.
Daniel, anything with you?
Let's see if I can unmute that. Hold on, Leecher. Are we fighting each other? I'll stop. You go.
Dan, you've never sounded better than you do right now.
People keep telling me I was just putting my credit card info in for some happy bucks, but good to see everyone, and everyone's healthy and happy, or relatively happy in our house. Depending on the time that you come into our house, you could have craziness, or everyone could be good. So yeah, we're all good.
Hey Dan, tell our guests how many young children you have.
I have 5 young children. The youngest being 5 months, and there's 2 of them.
Congratulations. And they're all 6 and under.
Double the trouble.
Oh my goodness.
And he looks relatively calm about it every time we see him. So you must be working it pretty well.
Well, I get to come into the office, which is I think my only saving grace at this point.
Yeah. Like we said last week, a bunch of my customers are at home working, and most of them say the biggest challenge is their marriage, not the doing the work from home, as far as that goes.
You did hear what happened in China after they lifted their restrictions, didn't you? Everybody rushed to the divorce attorneys.
Yeah.
Housebound with each other.
Doris, anything going on?
Who are you talking to?
Darcy, I just said.
There, I had to unmute myself.
There we go.
Yeah, everything is good here. My son works at Costco. He's a manager at Costco, so I've been very worried about that. He lives with us here at our house. So that's been kind of scary, but we've tried to put some, you have to come through the garage and wash your hands before you can enter the house and all that kind of stuff. So far we're doing fine, and no one at the Linwood Costco so far none of the employees have gotten sick. So I hope that continues.
Very good news.
Yeah.
Okay, any last ones? And then I'm going to turn over to Jerry to make the proper introductions of our guests. Okay, Jerry, you're on.
Okay, thanks, Mike. So yeah, quickly. So I don't even recall when it was, but several years ago, I joined the advisory committee for the Institute for Energy Studies at Western Washington, and very cool program. Western's in fact, you may have seen an article written up in the paper a week or so ago about the Huxley School. Western's been focused on the environment for a long time, before it was chic to be focused on the environment. Very innovative group, and this program brings together several colleges, and for a university, as they describe it, is typically as universities are, right, conservative and kind of stuck in their way of doing things. This was really out of the box, and they were able to create it. And Joel Swisser, who is here today, leads that program. Menka is the director of development, and Menka, you have a really long title, so I apologize if I missed some of that. I don't have it in front of me. And the Menka and Joel and I have worked together a lot on this committee, along with several other really, really good folks. And they're in the middle of a capital campaign at this point, and part of where those dollars will go will be for a building that will house the Institute for Energy Studies, because they certainly don't. At this point, they don't have an official home on the campus. So. And Sabah, the president, has roots in Oregon State, has done a fantastic job with the university since he's been there. He's supported the program I'm involved with wholeheartedly, and just all around a great guy. And I have a special place in my heart for Sabah because he handed my son his diploma last year. So anyways, with that, I will turn it over to the Western Washington folks.
Jerry, thank you very much. Thanks for having us all. And, I really do appreciate the observations that you have made. I certainly appreciate the tone, but also behind that, the struggles that with our jobs, with our businesses, with health issues. I'm pleased to hear that everyone on the call, generally speaking, is safe and well, and that's the first and the highest priority. We really appreciate joining you today. So what I thought I'll do is to spend a few minutes telling you a little bit about how the university and higher education in general has responded to the coronavirus crisis, and then segue into some of the broader work that we are doing that Jerry referred to in his comments. Joel, who is then going to talk a little bit about the Institute for Energy Studies and a new degree program for which we got funding from the legislature just recently. And then we'll have Menka certainly answer questions, but also wrap it up with the work that we are doing on the capital campaign that we have initiated about 8 months or so ago. Please feel free to interrupt anytime. Again, I let you lead that, in some ways lead the conversation. It's hard in many ways to have the conversation without not looking at people directly, because you don't know if, it can easy to tell if you're looking, if there people have questions or if they are want some clarification or whatnot. So I'll rely on you. So let me just start off with higher education and Western's response to coronavirus. And what I thought I'll do is, without taking a lot of time, is as I was trying to structure my thoughts, I thought I'll tell you sort of the 3 phases we have gone through. The first phase, which was sort of late March, early April, was sort of the focus on the immediate. And as you can well imagine, there the focus was primarily on safety and health of students in our community, and providing some business continuity, and in our case, providing some educational continuity because students had paid for the spring term. And so some of the immediate things that we did, and again, I'm using Western as a template, but I think it's pretty typical of higher education community. There are variations from one university to another, but I think the overall, the approach has been somewhat similar. So when we got going on coronavirus, we had about 2.5 weeks to go in the winter term. So we immediately suspended classes. The finals in the winter term were all remote. We immediately moved the spring term to be offered online remotely. We went along with we aligned with the governor's directive in terms of employees working from home, initially through April, then through May 4th. And now, in fact, we have extended it to June 14th, the end of the current spring term. And we closed the residence halls for spring term, except for students who really didn't have any other options, like international students or who had housing insecurity and really needed a place to live. We immediately created a crisis center, a communication protocol, and we have been communicating with students on a daily basis. Initially, as you can imagine, even though we were worried about the financial part of it, that was really not the focus. It was really on health and safety. We did suspend some construction project. Jerry was referring to the earlier directive from the governor. And for us, the two major construction projects we had to put a halt on was we just started building a 400-bed residence hall and broke ground on an interdisciplinary science building, about a $60 million structure. And so we put a hold on that. And the other main thing we did was to work with our other Washington public and private universities, really with the feds, to make sure that higher education is included in the CARES Act, the funding that was provided for individuals and businesses and so on. And I'll get to that in a little bit. So that was really the first 2 or 3 weeks. I would say the next week, which is more around early April to really to the end of April, there the focus really has been how do we build some resiliency in what we are doing, and to start tending to some of the financial issues that were or that are inevitable as far as the operations are concerned. So without getting into any details, we strengthened the learning environment. And one thing really I've been pleased is I was really worried that the spring enrollment will take a big hit. You know, students are immediately going to online. This is new for many faculty. Don't know how this is going to happen. But our spring enrollment is only down about a little over 2%, 2.2% from spring of last year. So I was really pleased that that we were able to sustain from that particular perspective. And so really the main focus there was how do we strengthen and provide support to faculty and students. You know, we knew that, you know, that there are some equity issues. There are students who, for example, don't have laptops or don't have access to internet and so on. So we have provided a lot of laptops on loan to students to keep it for a term. We have tried to work with our sister institutions and other locations where there is issues around broadband access to provide students with broadband capability where they can access the classes that are being taught. I wouldn't say that is perfect, but it has gone much better than I would have anticipated in many ways. And then, as you may have heard, that higher education was included in the CARES Act funding. Western is going to receive a little bit, is going to receive about $11.6 million from it. Half of it is directed for students primarily to complement the student financial aid. And that phase, we should be receiving that sometimes next week. We are just completing the paperwork with the Department of Education. The second phase, $5.8 million, which I think we'll get in a couple of weeks, is more focused on covering some of the institutional costs and some conversation that we are having. We moved our spring commencement to a virtual commencement, and certainly I got a lot more emails on that than on anything else, which I totally understand from students and families for whom that was a major event. But having thousands of folks on campus just was too risky, even if June is better than where we are today. We have canceled classes. We have canceled study abroad that we typically do in the summer because we just don't know what the international environment is going to be, even if we are on a positive trend. And then we have moved our summer term totally on remote or online learning. And summer term in any case is about 60% online. So it's not that major a shift from that particular perspective. You might also be interested to learn that in spite of closing the university, we still have about 6,000 to 7,000 students who live in the Bellingham community. These are students who have annual leases. Maybe they don't feel comfortable going home where there is greater risk or whatever. So our clinic has been very busy. This is their primary source of medical support. And so, even though we have moved to telehealth and telecounseling, our on-campus clinic has been quite busy. Though knock on wood, we have only had 2 students who were identified positive for COVID-19, and they were not hospitalized from that perspective. And so I think that's been generally true for higher education community. I was on a phone call this morning with presidents of other publics, and we were comparing notes. And I think even University of Washington, where there's a lot more, where there's a bigger issue, I think there have only been a handful of students who have been identified positively with COVID-19, and maybe it has to go with age and all that. And then certainly we are now turning our attention to fall. And so let me make a couple of observations about that. The one thing, again, from a business perspective, perhaps I should say is that, every crisis, whether it's the 2008 economic crisis or the dot-com bubble or whatever, is somewhat unique, and there are some common elements. But the one thing somewhat different about the COVID-19 pandemic is that universities in general are being hit both on the revenue side and on the cost side. Typically, the impact is on the revenue side. Enrollments go down, state cut their budgets, endowment enrollments go down, annual giving goes down. And so, for example, in the 2008 economic crisis, across the United States, enrollment returns were down about 25% for all universities, and annual giving year to year was down about 15%. But this time around, in addition to the potential revenue impact, there's also been a cost impact. For example, we all had to reimburse students for room and board that they had signed up for in the spring term. We had to invest immediately in remote and online learning. So there have been some additional elements that typically in some of the past crises we have not had to deal with. And really in many ways, and that's the other difference, the biggest impact, immediate impact really has been in what we call auxiliaries or self-support units. And again, that's true across the United States, where the units that have been the hardest hit are housing and dining. We lost 1/3 of the revenue for the year. That was the entire spring term. Bookstores, athletics, there's no income since there are no athletics events on campus, and that's hit even harder on major divisions like University of Washington or Washington State. Performing art type of activities where universities typically make a lot of money. So some of those operations have been hit more in a much more impactful way than the core university, at least from the initial front. In the conversation this morning, one of the things that the presidents of the 6 universities we talked about was is to build a model that is really focused on opening our universities in fall. And so we are going to work over the next few weeks with the presidents, with the private institution, as well as with our community and technical colleges, to hopefully have a dialogue with the governor that what would it take to open the campuses in fall term. Now, of course, we need to be vigilant in terms of how this whole thing plays out. But at the same time, we really feel that for the health of the university, both, can we deliver another term remotely? Absolutely. But that is very different than holistic student development or an integrative learning environment. And frankly, with online learning, the notions of community and connections, which is so critical to the social growth of students, ain't there. And so from that perspective, I think that the sooner we can get to normal, the better off we are going to be, but also from a fiscal perspective too. There is absolutely no doubt that the Washington revenue is, as you all know better than I do, is going to take a significant hit in the short term. And the impact is going to be on educational institutions. And then if we lose revenue from the state and we lose enrollments, it's going to be difficult for many of the institutions across the nation to handle that situation. So what our thinking is that, while we need to certainly look at a scenario where perhaps things may go longer, what we would like to explore is that what would it take to open the campuses? Because I think, as you all know, if you think about towns like Spokane or Ellensburg or Bellingham or Cheney, or even the U District in Seattle, even if the governor releases or eases up some of the restrictions about opening restaurants and so on, they aren't going to go any place until the students are there. Spokane needs the 25,000 students to populate the restaurants and other facilities. We need the students to jumpstart our construction projects and things of that nature. So that is our thinking, to develop a model clearly articulating what type of health services needs we will have on campus were we to open, so we can do, for example, large-scale testing if needed. What type of residence hall models may make sense? So rather than having 2 or 3 people in a room, maybe we only do 50% residency and have one person in a room. What type of teaching space makes sense? So maybe we go to sort of a flipped classroom type model where large classes are offered online, but then they meet with faculty in small groups for discussions and things of that nature. So we will try to articulate that over the next 2 to 3 weeks, and see if we can have a conversation with the governor's staff and the governor about fall term and about 2021 for the university.
Hey, Doctor?
Yes, sir.
Can I ask a quick question? For fall term, how late can you go to decide that? As universities go, do you need to make a decision on that by July 1st, by June 15th? How much lead time do you need before you'll be able to make that determination?
Yeah, excellent question. So Washington State is in a different boat compared to the other 5 public universities. And I suspect some of the privates also are with Washington State because they are on semester system and their semester starts in the middle of August. So I think there's a greater urgency for making a call for them by June 1st, or if not later. For the rest of us, we are on quarter system. We don't start until almost September 25th. So we have another 5-6 weeks there. I still think from a planning perspective, ideally, if we can make a call before the spring term is over, that would be great. What we are shooting for is to have the conversation with the governor and others over the next 2 to 3 weeks, maybe even by the end of May, if we can make a call about. And I think, the other thing that is important to note is all our faculty move to remote learning, but just offering something remotely doesn't necessarily guarantee quality. I mean, it's a truly quality online learning requires a lot more planning, a lot more, in terms of how you interact with students and so on. So if you are going to go to another remote or an online term, I think giving more time to faculty to really build in those interactions that are absolutely critical for quality, I think is going to be important.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely. So let me just take a minute and just say that, as you all know, and I think as Jerry pointed out, I came to Western about now 3.5, 4 years ago, close to 4 years. And what brought me to Western really was from Oregon State was really the focus on quality and the brand of the university. And so one thing I am most proud of is really that the high quality educational brand that we offer. In fact, you might be interested to know that if you look at the 7 or 8 states that comprise the greater Northwest, Alaska, Oregon, Washington, Nevada, Montana, Idaho, etc., the only public university that has a higher graduation rate than Western is the University of Washington. And that includes all research universities, all publics, all comprehensive, all land grants. So Western really has an excellent model from that particular perspective. So one of the most important, of course, the challenge and also the most important priority that I have is to make sure that we emerge from this crisis with the same quality brand and as a strong university. At the same time, I'm really convinced that coronavirus, the whole crisis, is going to change some key elements, the way we operate, and some key priorities for all of our universities. Just before, I would say about 12 or 15 months ago, we put together a strategic plan. And there were 3 key priorities that we had articulated. And I really believe that those priorities are even more important today than they were 18 months ago. And the priorities were, first of all, advancing inclusive success. And that really had to do with really going from good to great from Western. How do we take a really good graduation success rate and make it even better? But also at the same time, eliminate equity gaps that have existed for a long time in higher education. The other key thing was how do we increase our impact in the state of Washington by offering programs, not just in Bellingham, but in some of the other locations. And the third one was really building on the quality brand of the university. So let me give you, and so what really drove those priorities were 2 things. One was 18 months ago, the projections were that they would be somewhere between 750,000 and 1 million new job openings in the state of Washington. And we were importing labor from outside. And I think that's going to be even more so now with all the layoffs that have occurred. And then the other key driver was that, in order to fill that need, we needed 70% of Washington students finishing a post-secondary credential. Currently, it's a little over 50%. And so we were really committed to contribute towards that goal. So let me share a couple of examples and then hand it over to Joel in terms of how these priorities have made a difference over the past couple of years. Our enrollment this year was about 16,100. And we have had 2 of the largest incoming classes in fall of 18 and fall of 19. In fall of 19, we admitted close to 3,100 freshmen and 1,200 transfer students. But more importantly, students of color now comprise about 27% of the student body, highest ever at Western. And this fall, or fall of 19, 29% of first year and 42% of transfer students were first-gen students. So we have a tremendous, and so what I'm really proud is that we have sustained such a high success rate when we admit students that come from a very broad range of backgrounds to the university. One of the things I mentioned was our need to offer programs outside Bellingham. We have particularly focused on Everett, our programs in Everett, and the programs we offer in Kitsap and Olympic Peninsulas. In the supplemental session that just finished, we had a request for close to about $1.5 million for building programs on the peninsulas. And I was so pleased that the governor vetoed pretty much all new funding, except that he gave us close to $900,000 for a program on the peninsulas. So I was really pleased that it's in terms of access. Again, that's an area, as you know, of almost 500,000 students with no higher education provider other than what we offer over there. And lastly, I would say that our priorities have been well received in the legislature. In the 1921 session, we got funding for increasing capacity in STEM programs, including a new program in energy, science, and technology that Joel is going to talk next. We got funding for an interdisciplinary science building that we are going to restart now that the governor has eased the restrictions on construction. And we have gotten funding for a new advanced technology building to house energy studies as well as electrical engineering and computer science. The legislature has committed to $46 million in this coming year, with the university raising $20 million. And we can come back and talk a little bit more about the capital campaign after Joel is done. So with that, I'll be glad to take any questions, or we can go to Joel and he can talk a little bit about the energy studies program.
Guys, maybe if it's okay, we'll go to Joel and Manka and then have questions at the end if we can, just in the interest of time. So Joel, go ahead.
Thanks. Yeah, and Jerry, I should just say something. Another thing we have in common. Sabah also handed my son his degree year before last. So thanks to both of you all. Well, we've been busy teaching online this quarter, and it's actually been relatively smooth sailing in many of our classes as a result of the fact that we had been trying to shift our presentation in support of teaching in those other locations like the peninsulas that Sabah mentioned. We had been offering a segment of our enrollment online in previous years' editions of most of our courses. Well, not most, but a significant number of our courses. And so the shift to doing it entirely online was just more of a matter of degree this spring quarter for many of the classes, rather than just being a complete about face. So that was kind of a lucky break in a sense. I want to thank Jerry. He's been on the advisory board for the Institute for Energy Studies longer than I've been there. I think, Jerry, you were one of the founding board members, if not very close to it. And I'd like to say very explicitly that we've taken the advice and tried to run with it that we've received from Jerry and his colleagues on our advisory board in terms of the needs of the energy profession in the state of Washington and the Northwest. And we've also been really thrilled to see some of our recent graduates start their careers in jobs at University Mechanical, working alongside mentors, as stellar as Jerry, and giving us a chance to actually answer the question, well, what can the students do when they graduate from this program? So thanks, Jerry, for at least so far giving me a little bit of credibility. I think I'll try to share my screen if it works here, just to show what we're talking about with regard to this idea of an interdisciplinary energy program, because it's actually pretty much unique in the country as far as presenting interdisciplinary studies of energy at the undergrad level. There's some pretty renowned graduate programs at Berkeley and other places, but ours is really pretty unique as far as trying to pull together an interdisciplinary approach that covers the science and technology of energy, but also blends in the business and policy aspects that are so essential to understanding this energy system and working successfully to solve problems. And it was really the problem solving aspect that was the genesis of the program. Back again before my time, students in some of our environmental science courses were asking the faculty, you know, we're studying all these problems of pollution and climate change, and you know, it gets kind of depressing. Don't we also work on the solutions? And that was really the motivation to start the Institute for Energy Studies. My predecessor, Professor Andy Bunn, was coming from that perspective in environmental studies. And one of the things that he did together with Menka in particular was to convene this really stellar advisory board for the Institute. And it's really kind of a who's who of the energy profession in the state. And so we've really been designing the program to address the need to provide workforce in the clean energy technology transition in the state of Washington and in the Northwest, and very much with the guidance of that advisory board. And what we've come up with is kind of a portfolio, so to say, of programs. And it's shown on this chart with the funny bubbles in the middle there. Students in other majors can pursue a minor in energy science or in energy policy through our institute. We also have energy concentrations in majors of electrical engineering, so they can pursue power engineering, and in our business and sustainability major in the business college. But we also have two of our own dedicated interdisciplinary majors, a Bachelor of Arts degree in energy policy and management, which has been on the books now for a few years, and a brand new Bachelor of Science degree in energy science and technology, where again, we're trying to very explicitly weave in the policy and business chops that you need to succeed in the energy profession with a technical degree. It's not meant to be an ABET certified engineering degree. You know, we offer those, you can get those from other institutions, but it's meant to be a little bit broader than that, while still giving the students a very solid toolkit and skill set to go out into the profession and hit the ground running and become leaders over the course of their career. One of the things that we're trying to do, this is just an image of our catalog showing the new degree, BS Energy Science and Technology. We're very proud of that. One of the other things that we're trying to do, partly out of design and partly out of just kind of making lemonade, and that we're not likely to get a new shiny lab building anytime soon from our state legislature, but we're trying to create an initiative we call Campus as a Living Laboratory. And one of the things when you study the energy system, you learn that improving energy efficiency in our existing building stock is one of the biggest energy resources we have. The negawatts that can come from energy efficient technology in that building stock. And well, we've got that. We've got old inefficient buildings just like everybody else. We've also got a stellar group of energy engineers in our facilities management team. And unlike such facilities people in some of the other campuses I've been to, ours are really keen to work with the faculty and students. And they welcome pairing up the students with those practitioners to help the students learn about the reality of energy efficiency in buildings and learning to audit existing buildings and find ways to save energy and money, of course. And the deal that we've made with those folks is that we won't send them students to engage with them until they've been through enough of our coursework that they're actually up to speed and are asking smart questions and able to solve problems and not just pose them and be a burden. So we've kind of created this triangular relationship between our energy coursework, our facilities activities where we're trying to upgrade the buildings and save energy on a day-to-day basis, and then the student sustainability initiatives that generate the interest on the students' part in working in such projects. We've done a few dedicated hands-on projects Some of our students are working on a zero net energy tiny house project. We were planning to move it to campus when its construction concludes this current quarter. That's a little bit on hold, but we expect that to happen once things get a bit normalized. Another kind of cool little event that we've held actually just happened for the 5th annual rendition last Tuesday, is a carbon hackathon where students in teams together with professionals, again, from our advisory board and other leading practitioners around the state, do a very intensive brainstorming session to come up with creative ideas to address energy and sustainability concerns, and then have to pitch them to a panel of judges at the end of the session. And this year we did the whole thing virtually. Miraculously, we got the Zoom software to behave, and it was all pretty successful, and we're still kind of breathing a sigh of relief over that. So that's kind of the program in a nutshell. Again, we're really grateful to Jerry and his team for all of the advice and engagement, and especially for taking on some of our graduates and helping them jumpstart their careers.
Thanks, Joel. So one of the things that, and I'm going to invite Menka to make some observation, is that I mentioned the commitment that we got from the legislature for an advanced technology degree for electrical engineering, computer science, and energy studies. We got some money. We got $2 million for design of the building, with a commitment to provide another $6 million in this coming year, and for the institution to raise $20 million from private philanthropy towards about a $68 million project. We were in fact going great guns until the coronavirus thing slowed us down. We got a lead gift of $10 million just a few weeks, when was it? I think it was in December or somewhere around there. We have had a couple of other gifts. We have raised over $12 million, between 12 and 13 million towards the $20 million goal. I am quite confident that we will get there, and even though it has slowed us down over the past 6 weeks or so. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Menka to share her thoughts in terms of the capital campaign and what's going on.
Great, thanks so much, Sabah. I'm going to go ahead and share screen to give you just a quick snapshot visually of where we are. Sabah just summarized it, but I think it'll be a little bit easier when you take a look at it this way. So finding the screen. Okay, so I'm hoping everyone can see the screen here. I want to echo also Joel's thanks to Jerry and the other advisory board members for all the advice they've provided and guidance, but also it's important to say that they've also been hugely supportive from a philanthropic standpoint. And I know that their support was very instrumental in helping the state legislature see the value of what we were asking for public support, because we had private investors that were leading the way. So I think it's absolutely important to say thank you. And Jerry, thank you. You've supported the program in a lot of different ways financially, and we appreciate that. What you're looking at here is a quick summary of where we are with our capital campaign. As Sabah mentioned, the total project budget right now is at 68 million, which includes 2 million in the pre-design, 46 million from the state for construction. And then this chart shows where we are with our $20 million capital campaign. And as he said, we were going great guns, really excited. We could sort of see our way toward the finish line. And then things had to take a bit of a pause as we as a region, as a world, as a community focused on the task at hand. Now, pausing doesn't mean stopping. So what you can see here is the commitments that we have of over $12 million. We have some pending requests that total 750,000. And there's a few more about to enter that section. And then we have a really significant request that will be presented soon to a funder But it's a request we've been in discussion with for quite some time. And it's a funder who's been partnering with us already in the program, having funded a professorship in the electrical engineering program. And so to get where we need to go, we're looking for that other, $4+ million. And we have some exciting conversations that are in the works, but again, have been paused temporarily. We hope to be resuming those within the next, hopefully 4 to 6 weeks, as is appropriate. The campaign is definitely focused on identifying corporate partners to help us, because so much of what we'll be doing in this building with the advanced technology programs of electrical engineering and computer engineering and computer science and energy, the energy program, are of high interest to our corporate partners. And in fact, we hope to be partnering with some folks on the development of specific kinds of lab spaces. But there's also room for individual gifts as well. And in this total, there are some significant gifts, including gifts from some of our campaign committee members. And with that, I'll bring it to a close and ask Sabah if there's anything in terms of the campaign that you feel like I missed. And if not, certainly we have some time for questions, I think, perhaps.
No,
Yes,
thank
we
you.
do.
Summarized it well. Thank you.
Sabah, any other comments, or are you just ready for questions?
I think we're probably better off just opening and seeing, what comment, what questions or observations members of the Rotary may have.
Okay, I'd urge everybody probably to unmute, and if you've got questions, shoot them off. By the way, we have several parents in our club of Western Washington students, just so you know. Wonderful. I can think of 3 or 4 right off the top of my head.
You also have some Western Washington alumni in the group.
Wonderful.
I will tell you, Manka, Joel, and Sabah, that your bragging Jerry up is going to force us to have to live with. He's going to be impossible to live with in the club going forward with that kind of praise.
Sorry about that.
I have a couple of questions. One of them is, so right now you don't have any master's programs in energy and science. Is that correct?
We don't have a dedicated master's degree. We do have energy interested students pursuing master's degrees in environmental science and environmental studies in Huxley College, and working with our faculty as their advisors and on their research. But it's a future project to have a specifically designated energy degree at the master's level. We're not there yet.
Joel, doesn't electrical engineering has an option, master's degree in energy concentration?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay.
News to me if they do.
And the other question I had was that when you were talking about the number of classes that you're doing online, don't you think that this whole virus outbreak everywhere is going to change the face of education, starting all the way from K through 12 up through colleges? Are we going to be getting ready to change a portion of our education system to online training?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So first of all, I tend to agree with you. I think there are going to be some long-term changes in education in general, in terms of how we deliver education. I think there would be a greater focus on some sort of a hybrid model, where online and face-to-face are integrated in some way. I think the place where universities like Western, for example, so let me put it this way. I think forcing, say, Western to offer a term that is totally remote, while it has been challenging, has also opened some new doors, some new experiences for faculty to see that online education can be delivered effectively, if not for everyone, but certainly for certain groups of people, communities. So for example, I talked about Western on the peninsulas. As you know, the population on the peninsulas is very distributed. We never have an intention of creating a site on the peninsulas. But I think to make it work, it needs to be delivered in Port Angeles, Port Orchard, Paulsbo, Bremerton, and so on. And so I think an online model or a hybrid model makes a perfect sense for offering programs for communities. Communities on the peninsulas. I still think there is a significant role as residential universities in terms of the social and social development of young adults that I don't think can be replicated online. But I do agree with you totally that this whole thing has opened some new doors, not just for Western, but also for higher education across the board in terms of what role can online play.
Hey, Sabah, do you have a large satellite campus over on the peninsula somewhere?
So we don't have a campus. We do have, our biggest location in terms of presence. I mean, so we share a building there with the Olympic Community College in Paulsville. Okay. But we are also co-located with Olympic on their main campus, and we are co-located with Peninsula College in Port Angeles.
Okay.
So we have a number of sites. We offer about 10 or 11 different degree programs over there. The last two programs that we offered there were a program in cybersecurity. In fact, we have a really neat cyber range, one of the best, at least in this part of the country, over there. And we offer a number of education programs, program in environmental science and environmental studies, business.
Okay.
So we offer a number of programs there.
So you're well represented, it sounds like.
We are well, yeah.
Probably have time for one more question if anybody's got one.
Go, Debbie.
Okay, I have a couple of questions. Oh, first of all, I'll make a statement. My son is a graduate of Western, and so we're very proud of him for doing that. But I also got my undergraduate and graduate degree there, and I teach at Everett Community College.
Oh, okay, great.
Cool.
Yeah, so that was really interesting. Still recovering from that, and besides pivoting, in the middle of the term, like your, faculty did, I had the pleasure of teaching the very first class of the quarter during spring break, which kind of got overlooked to delay. So that was a very stressful experience, but I'll just lend a little bit of perspective to the group from a faculty member. It isn't the same, as you're mentioning, but there are some other positive outcomes of it, just like you've seen from these kinds of interactions. I had the best one-on-one interactions with my students ever. And, being there for them and scheduling one-on-one meetings with them and using Zoom, it was really, really some really good outcomes. So, it's like everything, it's different, but it's not necessarily bad.
Yeah.
But to my question, and I'm wondering if one of your group might be able to answer this, because just kind of a curiosity question. So it's an environmental science energy question. And that is, we've now left these big buildings that were taking certain amounts of energy and resources, and they've kind of, shifted down, but they take a certain amount of energy to maintain. And now we're all living in our homes and using energy and resources, electricity, water, power, heat in our homes. And I've just been curious, and my engineering husband wasn't quite sure the answer either, like which takes more energy and like which is helping the environment more? All of us going and working in big buildings, or us, working, from home in our smaller homes and using our own resources.
What we've seen in the grid data to date has been that the decrease in energy consumption in commercial buildings, which use about 30% of our electricity, is greater than the increase in residential buildings, which typically use 40% of our electricity. And so the net has been a decrease in energy use. And, I think it's a really interesting question apart from higher education, but just in the commercial sector in general is, how much of that commercial space will become occupied again once things get back to some kind of a new normal. My guess is that it'll be a little bit less because, some of the firms that are having to convert to Zoom are finding it works okay.
Yeah, exactly. That's what we've thought too. My husband works in a big tower downtown, And he used to commute, like telecommute 1 or 2 days a week. And now he's like, I could do this all the time. Maybe I'll go in 1 day a week, for meetings. But, on just a little bit of a, humor question, it's like, okay, then will our paychecks be padded to compensate for the additional costs to ourselves?
Well, I mean, there will be cost savings, and that would be one way to use them.
Yeah, because now I'm using my own printer. I'm paying for my own ink. I'm paying for all of these resources that, I used to be able to get from my employer, and now I'm having to cover that myself.
Yeah, and it'll be interesting. Also, the impact on business travel will be interesting to observe.
Yeah, thanks for answering that. That's fascinating because I've wondered.
On another comment on what Debbie said, that my daughter, who graduated from the University of Western Washington, she's living in China and teaching in China, and she's about 3/4 of the way through her master's degree, and she's doing it online through the University of San Diego. And I helped her. We did a lot of research on online education before she did that, because she wanted to do that while she was over there. And she said the classes are phenomenal. And there's a lot of, she said, in actuality, she's had more contact with her professors and more contact with her fellow students, the way they're delivering this, than she ever had in classes in the normal, when she attended at Western Washington, which is going to be typical of any other university. So I think that, I think there's certainly some ground there to explore that.
Absolutely.
Just interesting how the dynamics have changed.
It can work that way, but you have to contrast that experience with an institution who is well prepped for it. And like the program that I went through at Western was one of the leaders in online education, with what I had a conversation with our e-learning department this week. And that is, there are faculty who are not prepared for online teaching. There are faculty that they've been working with who didn't know how to use a mouse.
Yep.
Right.
So, that's where, what the doctor is saying is you have to have more time to either retire those people and phase them out, or have them get the adequate training to be able to teach online, because it's a service to the students.
Absolutely. My question was, are we looking at that to go forward so that we can change?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
The other thing that's good, we'll wrap it up here, but one thing my wife has found is, she and I are very young yet, in our 50s and early 60s, and she's in the North Shore School District, and this whole at-home education process that North Shore has done has really taught her a lot, and quite frankly forced her to develop her technological side. And at first, she was scared to death, but now she came to me today and she goes, now, if you need any help with Zoom, just let me know and I'll, help you with this, that, and the other thing. I started laughing. I said, she didn't even know what Zoom was a month ago, and now she's the expert. But it's been kind of fun to see. And I think it's stretching us all maybe in new areas that we, wouldn't otherwise have pursued. So, well, Sabah, Joel, and Manka, I want to thank you very, very much. It's been very, very interesting and great to hear what's going on at Western. We wish you nothing but the best going forward. And boy, you've got a lot to wrestle with, okay, wrapping up this year, and what's the summer and fall going to bring? The frustrating part for all of us here is just, there's so many unknowns, and how to move forward from this thing is just going to be a challenge for everybody. But thank you so much for your time and your graciousness to come and join us today. We kid you about Jerry, but Jerry's a great member of our club, and we think as highly of him as you do. And Jerry, thanks for working this out and lining it up for us.
My pleasure.
And I want to wish everybody a great weekend and stay healthy. And let's hope maybe there's a little sunshine in there for us at some point.
Same to you, Mike.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Great weekend.
Have a good weekend.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
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 See who the stragglers are.
Hi, Sean.
We can just roll this straight into happy hour, right? Thanks, guys. Have a great weekend.
Good job.
Bye.